Spider-Man Crawl Space Edition. Check us out, the SpidermanCrawlspace.com. Well, everybody, I'm back from my vacation, rested, feeling good, and just before the new school year starts for me here at my new school district. So I thought it was a perfect time to get all the major reviews here done. Of course, I'll hit it with, Amazing Spider-Man 54, aka 948 in the legacy number. The conclusion to Shadow of the Green Goblin, and of course, Ultimate Spider-Man number 7. Yes, I can count. Anywho, so I'm going to hit up all these reviews and kind of short and sweet, as believe it or not, except for about 2 of them, there's not really much to go in on the other issues here. So we're going to get all this pieces up, give it all up here, and I hope you enjoy it, everybody. So let's, of course, kick off with the main title, Amazing Spider-Man, of course, by Zeb Wells and Ed McGuinness, as the conclusion to the sins of the Green Goblin. So let's get into the pros, everybody. Okay, I'm fine now. Anyhow, so the pros. First of all, I have to say the artwork is actually fantastic. The actual battles and the switches between the sins of the Green Goblin into Peter Parker and the battles between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, Peter Parker, is actually pretty well depicted. There's really a good sense of horror in pieces. And McGuinness has already had this little piece with all over his artwork ever since his days of Deadpool. And yes, I know it's #1 movie with Wolverine. But anyhow, I also love the fact that it works with. There's a nice little horror fact in that little pieces with the designs. And it works very well, I like, in that part of the story. I also like the fact that we're actually trying to find out what the whole actual plan was, that Peter had worked with the Living Brain 2.0 to become a containment thing so he could actually finally wipe out anything that was left over in Norman. It's a nice little pieces, but there's a lot that are really going over exactly how the sins are supposed to be contained between the Wrinkler device and the Spear of Destiny, or the Spear of Craven, whatever you want to call it to this point too. So it has a nice little piece, and let's face it, the story's over. But that's where my pros stop. Going into the cons. Let's do this right here. Speaking of the Green Goblin. So, Peter, now I will take care of you because you're so pure. But you can't fight me, for I have a pure soul, and I'm amazing in creation, and I can fight your sins. Go to Norman. I'm the Green Goblin again. I can fight you. There's Spider-Man. We're so evil and Ozzy. Oh, I gotta go out and everything else too. Whoa! The sins are so powerful. I can't work on this. Have no fear. The walking brain will fix you. We're good to go. No, the sins have hurt me. I am nothing anymore. I'm melting. Oh, what a world. What a comic universe. 616. Exile, save me. Yeah, that's not the kind of thing we were looking over here. Basically, Wells actually does a complete thing on the season 2 of Spectacular Spider-Man, of course, how Peter defeated the symbiote by showing him his family and good feelings and everything. In this case, that's what it was. After all that, that's how it all ends with, oh, hey, Norman, you're good now. The sins have evaporated into the air. Oh, by the way, don't worry. Our buddy Wreck Rap is actually alive because he has multiple hearts. Don't worry, that's good. Because Ed McGuinness had to save his favorite character. So maybe he can draw them when we do the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man later on. You never know. Ooh. Also, the fact is, Ms. Marvel, oh, she was in this? Oh, Craven was done this? Oh, there was a battle off things. The issue has too much stuff going off panel. The characters are just thrown in there. So, and then same thing with Doug, MVP. I'm a chair. J. Jonah Jameson, I like Peter Knight because we've never had this kind of reaction between Craven or Gregor's drugs in any of the Spider-Man comics ever. So let's make it silly and funny. That's Zeb Wells. Guys, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I basically just summarized the story as basically a back and forth of an exorcism meant to be in a funny way, and the fact that the Green Goblin was never a dark personality brought on between Norman's abuse as a child, his crash and issues and everything else, or the Goblin formula doing it to it. No, they were just sins, and now he's exorcised, and Peter ends the issue with, I never trusted you, but you know what, Norman? Maybe someday we'll be friends. Weirder things will happen. The end. I like the artwork. I'm glad this story is over. I'm glad this creative team is going to be done in 2 more months. This issue actually gets a D+ from me. There's really not a lot of substance to this. The storyline's over. The sins of the Green Goblin are gone, and everybody's free. And Peter quits his job again because why? Why have a job again? Unemployment's better, and hey, get his credit score back up to fair status. Why not? Peter walks away back to the unemployment. Status quo. Yeah, D+, guys. Sorry. Okay, now I'll take away some of my octane for a little bit more serious of a better issues with Shadow of the Green Goblin #4, the big conclusion between J.M. DeMatteis and, of course, Selena Maria's artwork here. So how does the big storyline, which actually connects a little bit into this Amazing Spider-Man, actually work? First of all, the pros. I do like that this really deals with it. J.M. has really hit hard about the psychosis of Peter in those early days. Believe it or not, despite all the years between Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, there was a lot of psychological stuff that was going over in Peter's mind. And granted, back in those days of the 60s and even the 70s, there was a lot of focus on what was going on with Peter. He was trying in an adult world, being a superhero who felt he failed his uncle. I really like the fact he actually sees the horrors and that come to him fighting the proto-goblin from these chemical attacks, and the fact that he actually ends up dealing with it actually backfires on Neil Adkins, and of course he ends up having a panic attack. It's really interesting as you feel not only bad for Peter and what he's been through here and here, because in this point of the storyline, he's only been Spider-Man for a few months, and the feel that everything with Adkins, it just falls apart. The fact his body is decomposing, there's no cure for him as he finds out, and he's just falling and falling apart more and more. It is so heartbreaking. One thing JM has done a really good job of for all his Spider-Man issues is how much he gets to the heart and psychosis of all these characters, both good and bad, and is well done. I also like the fact he actually does answer some questions about Emily Osborn, actually showing that how Norman was aware she was still alive, the fact how she got out, and how the fact is, despite Harry being kidnapped, how he was able to remove his memories, because this is actually something he was working on early on before he officially became the Green Goblin. It's a nice look at Norman in those early days after he was exposed to the Goblin formula, everything that happened with the Proto-Goblin, as well as what happened with the Headman back in Untold Tales of Spider-Man. It gives a good piece, and I really enjoy how Emily Osborn realizes she's no better than Norman, and she really is an Osborn. And the fact that despite she gets saved by Peter when Neil attacks her one more time before he fades into nothing, how he basically lets her go, and of course Emily disappears until we see Go Down Swinging from a couple years ago under Dan Slott. It's well done, and the issue does a nice job of trying to bringing all the story together, kind of giving the conclusion with just a hint of a, what's going to happen as we see the Hazmat crew taking what was left of the Proto-Goblin, as well as Peter responding about how it is. It's well done issue. Cons is this why this is a great mini-series? It feels like, JM was basically taking a small thing of a question that hasn't been answered for over 20 years, and it's actually both good, and at the same time, I kind of feel this was a mini that not only was enjoyable, but it kind of serves to kind of answer a question a lot of old-time fans have been wondering for 20 years. I like the fact now, as the fact that all those years ago when I picked up the flashback of Norman's early days of Peter Parker's Spider-Man that was introduced by Howard Mackie, to see a conclusion in a logical sense, as well as tie into exactly how Emily Osborn was both dead but also alive. I also like the fact we actually get the funeral, I should say death scene with Gwen Stacy's mother. We actually finally see that. It was all depicted off stage or in stories that were actually part of Spider-Man long before we met Harry Osborn or Gwen Stacy. And it's very heartbreaking to see that, as well as George Stacy rallying around, is also seeing the connection between Harry and Gwen and their friendship back in the day. JM does a really good job with that, and I like the cohesion on the story in here. But when this is all said and done, is why for longtime fans, it feels like it was a good issue, as well as a well-written Spider-Man. And also showing, despite everything, how Norman Osborn was going more and more crazy at the time as the unfortunate. It's well done versus the magical sins that were just done in Amazing Spider-Man. I'm going to give the issue a solid A. I really like it. It's a great conclusion. It leaves some things open for some future stories, but I feel like when this is all said and done, this was a great story that we finally got some closure on an old storyline, as well as some interesting tidbits that only J.M. DeMatteis and Senator Maria were able to do here. So good job on the end of this mini. On that note, everybody, I'm almost there. I swear. Hold with me, guys. Hold a minute. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell. You know you can do it, because you know what? I'm getting to, of course, the big book of the week. Ultimate Spider-Man #7 by, of course, Jonathan Hickman and John Chicito. Let's get right into the pros. First of all, I really like how we've gotten more in here with Peter and Harry actually sparring and learning more about their suits. I also like the things of how they did with Otto Octavius. You know, we know he's eventually going to become probably Dr. Octopus in this universe too, but we're seeing more of the scientist Otto before he went in and say how he's so curious about this, doing things with both the suit of armor, but also finding out how there's such a difference between the Green Goblin armor, which is basically Iron Man armor, and the Picotech Spider-Man suit. It's really cool seeing the two and how they're doing on this and how they're trying to figure out better ways to do it, and also how to fight the Kingpin after everything happened last issue. And I like the new swing they did by creating the AIs for the new system. It's funny that Peter is basically talking to himself, but to see this Norman Osborn with calling Peter a less of a person, a loser, and he had to be worthy Osborn name, we're seeing that psychosis that unfolded over the course of so many years in the original Spider-Man comics, and here is the AI. You know it's going to backfire. The fights are amazing. We're seeing Peter and Harry have a friendship, but at the same time seeing the building blocks that they're going to probably fall apart. And it is well done, and you know there's going to be something crazy coming up between the Norman Osborn AI as these pieces, as well as everything with the Spider-Man tech and the Picotech. It's really well done. I lost the fact that, you know, Wilson Fisk is getting his Sinister Six together and him basically telling Captain Britain or Brian Braddock about how, despite everything, he doesn't need the Maker to do it. He can do his own job, and he has everything. As he says, while he's up in the ivory tower, I've got to do things right here back on Earth, and you know what? I don't need the boss on my side all the time. I like this Wilson Fisk. And even more, I like the fact what we're getting with the paper. Besides the little introduction between Mary Jane and Gwen Osborn on everything here, but seeing that, you know, Robbie Robertson in this universe is helping out Ben Parker and J. Jonah, same with the paper, and the fact that we have the inside job. It's really cool. I'm really hoping to see more as we continue with this about exactly how much of the Daily Bugle is really helping Jonah and Ben with the exposure of what's going on with the Kingpin, as well as the Maker world. It's well done. Cons. We know this is going to blow up in their face at some point. The AI in Harry's suit is really great because it does sound like Norman Osborn. You know, we're talking way back when I talked about Amazing Spider-Man here just a few minutes ago. We're seeing those kind of sins of the Goblin, the dark person of like what makes Norman Osborn. And despite being a whole nother universe, there is a constant with Norman Osborn being very dark, willing to just basically abuse his son verbally or emotionally to make him a better person. And we're seeing that as it falls apart with Harry fighting Peter. And it's really good, but at the same time, we're kind of already seeing the early things about how their friendship is going to fall apart. And of course, the conclusion when Iron Lad shows up saying, well, guys, it's been 6 months. You're ready to be superheroes in this world? It's a cool conclusion. We knew it was coming, but at the same time, is it kind of defects into the issue. But it's a really good issue. I still really enjoy it, just a little bit more than Shadow of the Green Goblin. So believe it or not, it's going to pop it up to an A+. Despite the cons, this is still the best Spider-Man book to read. I love the characterization. There was so much done in here between Peter and Harry, the AIs, Gwen and Mary Jane, Ben, Jonah, and Robbie. There's such cool stuff here, and I'm looking so forward to see what they tell Iron Lad here in Ultimates, as well as getting ready for their Sinister Six. Ultimate Spider-Man is still a top notch for me. Whew. Well, guys, thank you for continuing watching these reviews and putting up the videos, as well as liking and subscribing here. I'm going to call it for a couple weeks, and I'll be back, of course, for my normal reviews with Amazing Spider-Man and Ultimate as we continue working on here. So, for more information, check us out at the SpidermanCrawlspace.com for all our wonderful things. Definitely check out our live streams and podcasts. We got a doozies coming up here the next couple weeks. Awesome and amazing reviews, interviews, and so forth. So please check us out there or join our Discord. And for more information, guys, I'll see everybody else on the Crawl Space.